So other than the one scene that was the death of the salesman with the two brothers, you were seeing lines. Yeah. Questions, comments?
What was left out of that scene? Were lines.
What was left out of the scene?
The death of the salesman.
The death of the salesman. I know there's no F-bomb. I don't think much of it were the lines. It was the general concept. So sort of what we do is we start to improv the scene with, you read it a few times, so some of the lines just sort of get in you, you know? You kind of will inadvertently do lines, but you kind of start to factor in more and more lines as you go. You could hear it especially with one of the earlier ones with Golden Boy, which was Richard and Elle, where it's a little more of a period piece. They have some sort of dated things to say. You know, you really cannot memorize your lines and then fill underneath that. When you have lines like "Don't devil me," I mean, it's nothing anybody says anymore, you know. So you have to work from an improv place to get the gist of what that is, and then add just the words on at the very end. So that's what we're seeing with the that scene with I haven't seen Death of the Salesman in so long, but that scene I don't think we saw much of any lines in that. Yeah. But it's the basic, what I say is when we go to improv, if you want to do an improv on the scene, you pick the same beginning, middle, and end. So the beginning is the two brothers in the room together, the middle is the conversation about the dad, and the end is that they come together. And then otherwise, it's a free-for-all. So it gives you the basic parameters of improv. Do you guys want to answer that? Did you have any lines?
You did. You did about half.
Was that?
It was about half. Yeah.
Right.
Half the line. The other half was improv. So we did about half.
So you sort of start to pull in the lines, you know, kind of by osmosis. So that by the time you get to doing this, you're actually working the scene, what it should feel like to the actor is that it's an improv, you just are saying the same words. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm wondering about scenes that were chosen, are they more theatrical based, play writing, or film?
I teach primarily film and television acting, but when it comes to a film scene, generally runs about 2 minutes. It just doesn't give the actors much to, you know, break into. So we always go for the theater. Now some of them have been made into movies. Frankie and Johnny at the Clearland has been made into a movie. Spike Heels, I think they stayed theatrical, but it's very contemporary, and she writes for TV. The one Down the Rabbit Hole, the one that Joan and Jem did, that has been made into a movie. But we are going off the theater script because the scenes are longer, and it just gives the actors more to break into. Yeah.
When you were doing the coaching, and you would say, was it on the line? Were you feeling their impulse that they weren't going with?
Yeah.
Yeah, to speak that.
Yeah. And what we do a lot of times as actors is we have an impulse and we shake it off, right? And then we talk from our head. So what I say to actors a lot is line it up. And so that means the impulse comes from here. I want it coming from here out of your mouth and not all this other extraneous shit, you know? Yeah.
It seemed like there's some moments where people were afraid to like fully commit to an action that they wanted to do. Maybe because they were afraid that like their partner, if they didn't commit to coming in, then there would be like an awkward sort of dismissal. How do you fully commit to something? You just have to go for it, I guess.
And you have to do it moment to moment.
Yeah.
You just get braver and braver. I mean, it's really. I mean, when you're doing good work and it feels like you're in a free for all. You know, it's like almost like a free fall out of an airplane. You're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I got a parachute that's gonna work when I pull this, but I haven't tested it. It's that feeling of like and so. We're just braver at times than others, you know, and then sometimes, and actors get very sensitive to not throwing their partner off. It's one thing that I get on people about a lot of times. I'm like, if you're pissed at your actual partner in the scene, I do not care. That is life, and we will put that in the scene. So I don't have to have it coming from you, the character. I can be mad at you because you screwed up your line, or I can be mad at you because you missed the moment, or whatever. Whatever the life is that happens in the moment, but it feels very vulnerable and very risky to do that. When, it's funny, it's a funny thing that actors will do. I'm always telling people stop working so hard, because I'll be in a scene with you and you'll piss me off. You personally will do something that screws up my scene, and I'm like mad at you, but I try to push it down. So, because that's me, Kristen, being mad at you. So I don't want to do that. So I try to push it down, put it over here, jump over here, create all this stuff to try to get some life so I can get back in the scene. And I'm like, stop with all that. Like, you got to just, be in it and be in it fully in the moment. Those are gifts. Some of the best work I've done has been with people I didn't like at all, because there's a certain point where you got to go, well, screw it. I'm not going to like this person. They're not going to like me. I got to go for whatever I get in the moment. But a lot of times when you like your partner, you're much more restricted in what you'll let yourself do. Because if I like you and you're screwing up in the moment, I personally feel for you, instead of me, the actor up here, going, you're fucking up, man. Cool. And like using it and mocking you, or doing whatever it is that my character would do in the scene. So those moments of real life kind of popping, those are the bravest moments for actors to really embrace and let them be real. I mean, it's one of the things I've said about Brad Pitt when he did that Mr.
and Mrs. Smith.
Mr. and Mrs. what?
Smith,
yeah. Because it's some of the bravest work he's ever done, and it's like an action flick, But he let us see him falling in love with that woman, like right in front of us, right? I mean, you watch her dance, and you're like, oh shit, he's got some trouble when he goes home. He just let us see it, and it was real, and that really is the bravest work you can do. Sensory and all the things we do as actors to create, it's always plan B, It should be. I mean, it's plan A until something better pops in. But when something better pops in, like, you have to let yourself go with those moments, but it's a really brave thing for actors to do. It's like they'll tell you in theater and stuff, if something falls on the stage, you have to deal with it. You have to let the reality of the real moment hit you. Well, it's the same thing if your partner's been late coming in for the night, or you're mad that they stole the moment, or whatever it is. They skipped a line. Like, all that stuff has to really happen in the, be real in the moment. And sometimes when people really commit and they do that, that is the moment you'll see it really click in, and you go, whoa, what happened? Like when I gave Dante his line, and I said, this is the line. I wasn't making up the line from knowing the play. I'm making up the line from seeing what's happening with him and making him line all of that up to hit it.
It seemed like there were also some moments when you wanted actors to like refrain from fully. They would have a desire, and you would kind of make them hold back.
Yeah, because a lot of times I tell people all the time, I'm saying to them, don't handle it, express it. So if I'm cold and I go to put something on, I just handle it at the moment. Yeah. If I'm an actor and I want to touch you and I just go over and grab you, I'm just really handling it. But if I really want to express it, I feel the need to touch someone, and the inability to do it, far more powerful. Especially when you're doing love scenes, it's the wanting of the two people to come together, not the actual coming together of the two people, that's far more powerful. What?
Unless you do it for it.
Well, yes. I have done it for. So, yeah.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
As a director and producer, how can you help the actor that uses this method to really get the best performance
That's a great question.
in a film situation?
With method actors, and I mean, I think this is true with I work Strasbourg, but there are other methods as well, and I think any of our actors that come out of this, I would say, trust the actor to do their process. Just tell them what you want it to be. You know, the problem is what happens a lot of times, especially with newer actors, and I'm always coaching my actors on learning how to, like as a director, it's not your job to lead me to where I need to go. It's your job to tell me the end result, you know? And so my job is to then backtrack myself and work my process. But we're such pleasers, you know, actors. So somebody tells us sort of where we need to go, and we're so scared not to get there that we just act that. So the more you can stay, for any directors I would say, the more you can stay off of result. It's funny because you would think that professional actors would not be able to handle that and new actors would, and it's actually the reverse. I mean, I've worked enough now that if sometimes with a director I'll just say, okay, just give me a line reading. Just tell me what you want to end up with. Because I know I'm going to go back to where I need to go to create what I need to create to get to something approximately there. But for new actors, they're so wanting to please you, and they are shakier in their process. So it's more, instead of saying words that are result words like angry on this line or get me, you know, it's more, give them more the story behind it a little bit. You know, this is your father, he said he was going to come home and he's not coming home, or what happens to you there. You know, and I'll tell you a trick that a director friend of mine used, I mean a big Hollywood director, who it's kind of mean that he does this, but it works, so I guess he can. But he'll do this with newer actors if they have really emotional scenes, and he'll say, okay, on the first take, I want you to give me everything you have, like totally overdo it, totally play like every moment, like really, really emotionally just pop it, you know? And he doesn't put film in the camera. and he tells his DPs like, don't run it, you know? So they do all the setup, he yells action, they point the camera, he does the countdown. He just lets the actor get it out of his system. Because he's like, all their nerves, all their performance shit, like, just get it out without wasting my film. And then he'll come to the actor and he'll go, great. Now that we've done that, just do nothing. Just do nothing. Nothing. Just whatever, you know, just like really the opposite of what you just did. And what happens is they've already got some stuff going because they've pushed, you know, and then they drop it, and then there's just residual real stuff there. And that works well for him. Now you better be able to do it in 2 takes, you know, because you don't have much more than that, or else they start building back up to acting. But the main thing I find with directing actors is I try to give them, the more you can give them the feeling of what you want to see and not the result of, you know, what you want to see, until you're working with really seasoned actors, and then they can just translate.
I do the same thing with Hollywood too. I'm trying to get them to, you know, have some look. It's not like, oh, you're angry here or you're sexy here. It's, you need to think of somebody that you love and,
right,
you know, really give them the story.
Yeah. Taking them on the journey instead of giving them the result will always get you to a better place. It's just exhausting, you know, and it's a lot of work for directors, and you shouldn't have to do all that, you know, but when you can get more and more trained people, they should be able to do that on their own. And I tell the actors the opposite, which is you got to backtrack it. You know, director says to me, okay, way more anger here, and I go, uh-huh. And then I promptly dismiss it and do whatever happens in the moment, you know. But no, I mean, I do make a note of it, but I can't go for that, because if I go for it, it's just going to be bad. You know, and you see so many directors who come up and they'll give you some adjustment, like, do that again, that was great, but just, you know, way more anger with your father this time, okay? Go. And after they're going, you know, I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Just do what you were doing before. I.e., I didn't tell you right. You can't do it. I don't have enough time. Like, let's just move on, you know? And we should be able to fine tune, but directors are visual people. You see final product, you see picture, you see story, you see, you know, and actors are emotional processing. So it's that bridge of how to line those two things up, and nobody's wrong in this, you know. It's just a matter of we talk different languages. Yeah.
Hey, Kristen, you're a great coach. What do you tell your actors to prepare? What can you give them, or what do you give them for ammo when they go to an audition, let's say, and the specs change, or there's a different idea? Cold read, anything?
Yeah. This work works really well for that because, as you see, it's like the emotion comes first and the line comes last. So it works great in those situations. I mean, I always tell my actors, you know, at the end of the day, your director is always right, even if they're wrong. So you just do what they tell you, even if you got to kind of act it to get there, ultimately. I mean, a lot of times the director will have a specific, they're editing in their head, right? So a lot of times you'll get to a moment they've already edited where they know something's gonna happen there, they're gonna pull in on some shot, like they've already sort of got it. So they need some really technical result there. In that case, just give it to them, you know? But when it comes to people going in and things change at the last minute, I mean, this work has worked really well for me in that I'm really, really accessible with the script at a very last minute because I'm always, my process is, it's like a big tree, you know? So the script and the leaves on the tree and the lines, that's where that is. But I'm always working the roots. So my roots are the same whether you mess with my lines or not. You know what I mean? So my emotional journey and my emotional track and what I'm working on from a sensory place doesn't have to change. You're just going to change out some words. And it's an easy way, for instance, I work with actors a lot of times, they'll have lines like, don't devil me. Okay, that's not something anybody would say. It's a hard thing to say if you're trying to work it in the moment. But we've all said, don't fuck with me. So I would say when you rehearse the scene the first few times, you say, don't fuck with me. And then you say, don't fuck with me. And then you say, don't fuck with me. And then you say, don't devil me. And you're exactly lined up because the last thing are the words, which is not that important. And TV writing is very simple, you know? It writes for an IQ of like 90, cooking dinner and babysitting your kids and having a drink after work and online shopping while you're watching. You know what I mean? It is not complicated stuff. So if you just listen and pay attention and read it a couple of times, it's really not that hard. I mean, I can't imagine auditioning for something like, you know, John Wells does, or, I mean, those types of shows where the writing is really, but writing is not, it's usually our friend if we'll just allow it to be, you know, and click into the story underneath it. Where we get in a glitch is making the words the ultimate thing.